In episode number 252 of the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, we cover DC's latest crossover with Archie comics.
We also talk about the new ride that's rumored to be at Walt Disney World. I don't believe it for a second.
And just earlier today, we saw Spider-Man Homecoming. We've got the full review at the very end of today's episode.
All of this and much more on today's show.
Hello and welcome to the Reasons I'm Broke podcast, bringing you the reasons we're broke every single week, ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more. I'm Daniel.
And I'm Kelly.
For those of you new to the show, welcome to the Broquette family. The way we format the episode is first we cover some news ranging from comics, movies, TV, video games, and more, and then we end up with a comic book highlight, our Patreon shoutouts, and of course a review. This week we don't have a comic book highlight. There wasn't any sort of jumping on point that we could share with the Broquettes out there, but instead most of our review portion will take place with our Spider-Man Homecoming film review, which again will be at the very end of the episode. It will have full spoilers, but this is why we put it at the end of the show, so that if you want to still see the movie, you don't want spoilers, you can still enjoy the rest of the news and, of course, the Patreon shoutouts.
Before we get too far, though, Daniel, you reached a very important milestone this week.
Much fucking earlier than I expected,
Yes.
too. I completed goddamn Mass Effect Andromeda. I finished that shit.
I never thought this was going to happen.
I didn't think it was going to happen
I
either.
know I encouraged you and told you it would. I never thought it was going to happen.
You never believed in me is what you're saying?
I never believed... I believed in you so much that I knew you would do all the side missions, and I believed in that, leading you to never finish it.
You sat through one of the side missions, which took me, 40 minutes to complete?
It was longer than that. It was like 2 hours.
And it was all me going from planet to planet, talking to this guy, talking to that guy, and you're like, this is just one side mission? I'm like, yep, this is one blip on the giant story that is Mass Effect.
But you did. You completed it. The whole story done, and long before Leo showed up.
Way before, and I didn't expect to actually complete it because I had done all of the allies and relationships missions, and I'm like, okay, let me go ahead and knock out another one of the story portions, and then maybe I'll go back to another planet and just mine minerals, because that was like, all the stuff that was left were the boring things, like scan all of the plants on every planet, and try to mine every single mineral out there, and all of that still needed to be done. There were 2 or 3 planets that needed to be awakened through the giant siphoning, the fucking monoliths from 2001: A Space Odyssey, and I was going to come back and finish those. So I did the story mission, and I knew that this was like the fake out, like, oh, this is where we give the final push to the bad guy, and there was a fake out, but then the mission after that is the end of the game, like it's the final mission.
All right.
Sure enough, the final bad guy, he takes on this form of a giant monster, and they're like, Ryder, he's taken off too much power. He cannot control it. If we can disrupt all of that, he's going to destroy himself. And I'm like, all right. So we're doing all of that, and that was the end of the fucking game. We escaped the planet. Most of the all the crew members live, except for the head of the whole initiative. Remember the president leader that I was trying to seduce?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I want to romance her. Well, she didn't end up making it because I did not actually have other initiative leaders, other what do you call them? Other pathfinders. And instead, I ended up not convincing one of them, and I guess you have to have all 3 for that lady to live. And the guy straight up told me, I don't want to do this. I'm going to mess it up, and you should probably find someone else. And then I said, look, if the guy doesn't want to do it, and he has no initiative at all to even try like the other 2, then yeah, fine, go do something else. I'll find a new pathfinder for your species. And then it gave me the sad music when I did that, and I said, oh shit. And then at the end, she ends up dying, and I said, oh fuck. Like if I had known, I would have forced his ass to be a pathfinder just so that the president lady could live, and then he could have quit. But no, she ended up dying, so that was like the only negative portion to me beating the game. And now I've started Kingdom of Hearts 2.8, the Dream Drop Distance version, which is my favorite of the Kingdom of Hearts games, although it doesn't seem to play as well as I remember. It's, again, the controls are aging on it, and if you go back to all the other Kingdom Hearts games, those are also very aged. And instead, I've gone back and done more multiplayer for Mass Effect Andromeda. Now I'm just trying to power up my multiplayer character and just do a bunch of those missions with a bunch of people. And so far, we've passed every single mission, everyone's experience. I'm doing all the silver rated missions, which you have to be in at least level 10 to do it, and I'm up to 17. So it's a fucking blast. The multiplayer is fucking awesome. So not only is the game great and the story shorter than I expected and probably shorter than any of the other Mass Effect games, but with the other side missions, I probably put in about as much time as Mass Effect 3. I wouldn't say Mass Effect 2, but definitely Mass Effect 3.
So you would say it's worth it?
Oh, absolutely, it's fucking worth it. I got the special edition, the $80 one, and hell yeah, it was fucking worth it. All the goddamn hours I put into this game, I enjoyed it. It never felt like a chore. And now I'm playing the goddamn multiplayer. It is so worth it, and it's sad to see that there probably won't be an Andromeda 2. And the way that this ended, there are open-ended things. There's a new villain that could come out after us, so there's still some ties that they were clearly going to sever or solve in the sequel, and a bunch of the decisions that I did make I know are going to affect me in the later games, but there's probably not going to be any later games. Instead, BioWare's working on that E3 title that we were talking about, and there probably won't be another Mass Effect at all, if anything, anytime soon. It'll probably be another new #1 series, and I don't see the game suddenly spiking up in sales anytime soon, so this is pretty much it for Mass Effect.
So no sequel to Mass Effect.
No sequel to Mass Effect.
You know what will also not have a sequel?
Which one of your games is not having a sequel?
Oh, it's not a game. It's a movie that I happened to see this week.
All right.
47 Meters Down.
The shark movie.
The shark movie.
With Mandy Moore.
With Mandy Moore.
Who I did not expect Mandy Moore to be on
I did not expect her to be in here either.
Did she make this after A Walk to Remember when she was still getting acting gigs? What the hell's going on?
It was a terrible movie. If you guys want to see a really, really cheesy movie, then go see this movie.
Is it just a shitty shark survival movie where the sharks get smart and they do things that are out of the norm?
Yes, essentially. And I have a shark expert at work. Her favorite animal is shark. So after I saw this movie, I went to her and I'm like, so they gave me this fact. Is this right? Like at one point in the movie, they're swimming up, right? And there's sharks everywhere. Mm-hmm. And they have these flares. And they're like, sharks don't like flares. Just use your flares. I was like, is that true that sharks don't like flares? And she's like, well, they don't like scary things. I'm like, but they're scary things. I'm very confused.
So are the sharks the opposite of the T-Rex? If you remember in Jurassic Park, Jeff Goldblum took the flare and the T-Rex was chasing. Yeah.
Yep. I guess they are. They don't like flares.
So they actually ran away in this?
They just didn't attack them at that time because they had the flare. So they're like, oh, can't attack you now because you got this flare, even though you're both spilling blood everywhere.
And the other thing you said is that if they smell human blood, they wouldn't really go for it because they don't like eating humans.
Right.
But every time they've had people bleed in the ocean, like it seems to attract sharks. So at least the smell of blood does make them come out and investigate.
It does, but from everything I've heard, they don't like the taste of humans. So a shark would never bite a human and be like, oh, that's yummy, let me get it again. And the thing is, in the beginning of the movie, when they're up near the top, there's fish fucking everywhere. Like, there's plenty for these sharks to eat. But no, they go 47 meters down to attack the two little girls in a cage because that's what they have to do.
Because it's a matter of principle now for those sharks?
I guess.
They were offended by their presence?
They're like chasing them and everything. It's just ridiculous.
So you wouldn't recommend it?
If you want a bad movie night, and part of what made this movie funny, I mean, it's a terrible movie. You have to make fun of it. That's the only way you can get through it. Because the whole plot, are you ready for the whole plot of this movie? The reason that they're going in the shark tank is because Mandy Moore's boyfriend broke up with her because she was boring. So she had to do something not boring to take a picture to send to him.
to prove
that she's not boring so that he would like her again. But in the meantime, she's making out with this guy from Mexico, so I don't know.
So at the very end, does he go, you know what? Does her friend die? Can you tell me that?
It's her sister. Yes, her sister dies.
So at the end, her sister dies. Mandy Moore obviously makes it through. And does she go, see, do you like me now? My sister died, but I survived that shark attack. Yeah, I guess you're not boring. And then the end is the credits.
We don't get to see. All we know is that she goes to the surface because the Coast Guard finally shows up to save her with their harpoons.
All right.
And that's how the movie ends.
So terrible movie night right there.
Horrible. But it was so funny because the people all in the theater, there was this one guy sitting in front of me, and every time a shark would come out, he's like, it's a shark! Lisa, be careful.
You had the commentary the whole time? Then?
Yes.
So was that the director? I'm guessing he was the director,
I'm sure
right?
he was the director.
He's just giving you guys a live...
Yeah. Lisa, wake up. Don't go out there. There's a shark.
It's probably the same guy from our Invasion or whatever movie that we saw with it should have won the Oscar, but it ended up winning the Oscar last time.
Yes,
Yeah.
Arrival. Yeah. He's going to be behind you.
It's the same guy, I'm sure.
I'm sure it's
got to be the same guy. So I'm glad you saw a terrible movie.
It was horrible, but
it
was fun.
I finished Andromeda, and I've started also Fire Emblem, which you enjoy watching.
I just like watching it. I don't want to play it.
Fire Emblem Heroes. Story's got you.
Yeah.
There's a little love story there.
It could be a love story. We don't know. It might just be a friendship story.
But the other big thing that happened for the podcast this month is we are up for the Podcast Awards 2017 under the Games and Hobbies category, which is where you will find the show on iTunes and every other podcatcher, but also for People's Choice. The way that the Podcast Awards work is listeners have to go on the website, register to nominate a podcast, and then based on the list of podcasts in that category, you nominate a show. And then at the end of the month, so the last day to nominate us is on July 31st, they will then pick it. They have a panel, and you can also have the option of being a voter, and they'll choose from the voters as well. And they'll choose the nominations based on how many people actually came out and nominated each episode. And then from there, this panel will listen to each show, and they will vote on who the winner should be in each category.
We've already had some listeners register so they could vote for us, so thank you guys so much. But if any of you have gotten any enjoyment out of our show, or if we're your favorite show, or, I don't know, your least favorite show and you still listen to us, doesn't matter. If you can take the time to go over and nominate us, it would be a huge help.
For a link on the Podcast Awards 2017, right here in the show notes, you will find that link, and it'll take you straight to the website, and it takes 5 minutes, and we would definitely really appreciate it. And huge thanks to all the Brookettes that did it in the very first day, in the very first week, as soon as this news broke. And either way, you know, it's just awesome that we are on the list for the Podcast Awards 2017. If we get nominated, awesome. If we end up winning, even better. So again, this is all right back at you guys. It's all thanks to you. So we'll see what ends up happening at the end of the month.
But I'd just like to throw out that I'm growing a small child, and any joy is good at this point.
Why don't you just emperor your way to winning?
Because that's not fun. That's unsportsmanlike. I like to win. I mean, I could easily make people love me, but it's more fun if they do it on their own.
Purple Swordfish said he was going to contact Russia to make sure that we get a little hack here and maybe pull off a win.
So we get a little help.
Double influence right there.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
So with that, we are going to jump into the news for the week.
So as we mentioned at the beginning, there are some rumors that there's going to be a new roller coaster at Walt Disney World. I don't think I believe this one, but there are rumors. So according to WDW News Today, a Tron roller coaster will be replacing the Tomorrowland Speedway at Disney's Magic Kingdom.
If this news ends up being true, this says that Disney still places value in the Tron franchise. Like, we know they're going to own it forever. They're not going to let that shit go. But the fact that they're actually doing something with it is definitely good news. I know the last time we saw something was from the animated series that was a spinoff of the new Tron Legacy movie. And that was excellent. I liked the Legacy movie as well. But then after that, the returns weren't there. And the Blu-ray sales as well weren't enough for Disney to do a Tron Legacy 2. So since then, we haven't heard much about Tron. There's been rumors of a new Tron film taking place separate from the older continuity. But now that they're actually supposedly doing a ride, I know you don't believe it, but if they do end up doing this ride, hopefully this means something for the Tron fans out there.
Well, the reason they'd be doing the ride, too, is because this ride is massively successful in Shanghai.
Tron or Tomorrowland Speedway?
The Tron.
Okay.
The Tron roller coaster is super successful in Shanghai.
So there's already a Tron ride somewhere?
Yes.
Holy shit. Is it new, or was it back when Legacy was built?
No, it's when they opened Shanghai.
Okay, so a couple, 2 years ago?
Within the last few years, yeah, but it's the Tron light cycle. So you get on the little light cycle and you go on a roller coaster.
Oh, well, fuck, yeah, this is true. Why would you say it's not true?
Because I still don't think it's true. I don't believe it.
It only counts if it's in the U.S.?
It only counts if I feel that it should count. I just don't see them doing it here.
It needs a stamp of palp approval first.
Yes, and it does not have my palp approval.
What kind of ride? Have you seen the Shanghai roller coaster?
I haven't. I've heard about it, but I haven't seen it myself.
If they end up doing the Tron light cycles, would it have to be an enclosed area because of the lights?
Yes, it is. It would have to be enclosed. The thing about the light cycle, though, that's different in Shanghai than it is here, is the demographic of people that are in each country. And the size of the ride
I gotcha.
When you get on it. So very, very different because you go in and it harnesses you in.
Mm-hmm.
And there's already been problems with that in Pandora that I've heard of. So to bring another ride that's now going to be exclusive in a sense, yes, a lot of people will be able to ride it, but there's equally a large number of people that wouldn't be able to ride it.
If this Tron roller coaster does end up happening, it'll be sometime in 2020 or 2021. I know it's a little weird. Every now and again, we cover Walt Disney news, but that's just a product of being here in Orlando. That it's things that happen, everyone pays attention to because inevitably a large portion of the country from different parts of the nation do end up coming to Orlando at least once in their lifetime. And normally it's to go straight to Disney World. And then they go to Universal Studios and SeaWorld and everywhere else. So I know we have Broquettes as well that fly down to Orlando and they go to Disney, of course. So maybe it'll be something else actually our largest downloads for the podcast, Kelly, is California.
Huh.
So California, of course, has Walt Disney Land.
No, Disneyland.
Is it just Disneyland?
Yes, this is
I
Walt
apologize.
Disney World. That is Disneyland.
Excuse me, I don't live in California. I've never been there, so I don't know what they call their theme parks.
You don't know the legacy of Disney because Walt Disney died before this park was built, or before it was finished, and that's why his brother named it Walt Disney World after his brother because it was just supposed to be Disneyland, Florida.
Okay,
something
fine.
like that.
So they've got Disneyland.
Yes.
And they'll probably get their own Tron roller coaster.
No.
And a bunch of our Broquettes live out in California.
No, that's not happening.
That's not going to happen at all.
No. Because here's the difference between the two parks. Can I put on my Disney knowledge hat?
Yes.
Here's the difference
your
between...
Mickey ears, you mean?
Yes, my Mickey professor hat. So Disneyland, the majority of the people who go there are annual pass holders. And as such, they like things, boom, this is old school. This is the way it's always been. That's why they still have Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. That's also why they change up the Haunted Mansion for Halloween because the annual pass holders...
You mean for Christmas?
Yes, I'm sorry, for Christmas. So they'll put Nightmare Before Christmas. Right, for Christmas. That's why they change it up because the annual pass holders, it's the same thing but reskinned. So it's still that legacy that they've had. So they're not going to add anything crazy to change up the park. Here at Walt Disney World, a lot of the people who come, they only come once because they're tourists. And so they're able to put these other things in there because they're just going to come once. It's really cool. They've seen it. Awesome.
They can afford the change and people won't freak out too much. There's still a freak out. Disney Quest just closed recently and that was a pretty big thing. Pleasure Island and Downtown Disney. That was a big one for me because I worked at Pleasure Island and actually I worked at Disney Quest as well. So seeing that it closed recently, I was like, oh shit, man. Like it was coming. They weren't
It should
really
have happened
updating it.
5 years ago.
The last thing I think they updated while I was there is they put up some HD monitors on some of the rides, but then the Wreck-It Ralph video game, it's Fix It Feel Like, just like the movie. You get to play the actual Fix It Feel Like arcade cabinet. And I say actual, but it's brand new. They did it just for Disney Quest and a couple of different arcades. I'm sure they sold it to. But it is dressed up as an old school arcade cabinet. They even have it worn down on the artwork. It's got Donkey Kong style art on it. And it pretty much plays like the classic NES and arcade Donkey Kong, except you're playing as Fix-It Felix and you're fixing the windows as you make your way up to Wreck-It Ralph. And he's, of course, the bad guy. You knock him off the fucking building, just like you knock off Donkey Kong. And from there, you fucking win the game. It's difficult, but it's not as hard as Donkey Kong. So that was probably the biggest and newest addition to Disney Quest. And finally, that ended up going away. So shout out to my Disney Quest friends. I know I have at least one that listens to the show. Joshua, there's your shout out also, among multiple times that we've done it. And yeah, it is kind of a shitty thing that it closed, but again, it's just like the crowd wasn't really there all the time. Near the end, of course, but it's like we need you all the time, not just when something is closing.
Right.
But it's it's a sign of arcades, and unfortunately, I think at this point it's just Dave and Buster's.
Mhm.
And when I go up to Illinois, I always forget the other arcade, but it's pretty much like a Dave and Buster's. They've got a bar, they've got video games, they've got tickets, and they've even got like games just for that place. So they're few and far between, but they are there. It's just not a 25-cent arcade type of nation anymore. Everyone has their consoles, everyone has games in their pockets right now with your phone, and that's just how people are going to be playing from now on. And I'll miss it, but I get it. I understand it.
Speaking of games, something that we will never see go away is Nintendo.
And as popular as Nintendo is, Kelly, especially right now, and the Super NES Classic, there is an attempt by eBay to thwart scalpers. And what they've done, Kelly, is they have taken down auction listings for the Super NES Classic through a new rule implementation.
The company is removing listings for pre-release items and accessories if the release date of the item is more than 30 days away.
Before the removals, listed eBay prices had hit as high as $700 fucking dollars.
That's ridiculous.
For the Super NES Classic.
Ridiculous.
$700 fucking dollars from these scalpers that were sure that they were definitely going to get one. Maybe they work at some of these retail locations. Maybe they know friends that work at Best Buy that know they can put one aside for them, or GameStop. And they are putting up these fucking consoles and people are bidding on them, or they're putting them up as a buy it now for $700. This implementation is interesting though, because within the 30 days of the item releasing, then they can list their items, and unfortunately, maybe scalpers will end up jacking up the prices again. But the where it makes the difference is right now the hype is incredibly high, and they were selling, or at least bidding for a high amount. But once you get it within 30 days, there will be more people than now that had already pre-ordered their copy. So anyone desperate enough to pay the $700 is now doesn't have that option anymore, and gives them that much time from now until, the end of September, when the console releases, to try to find one in between that time. And yes, that is cutting down on the scalpers that they won't be selling that particular console, and hopefully inevitably that will bring down the pricing. But this is also on Nintendo's part, where they have yet to do any kind of retailer partnership or announcement on where you can find the Super Nintendo Classic. So right now, people want this thing, but they have zero information on how they can actually get the console. So if they had announced it, and then maybe it could also be that they're gauging interest too in the items. They're paying attention to the eBay listings, and maybe they're creating extras. You're shaking your head though. You don't think that's it?
No. I think Nintendo's the scalpers.
I just bought this eBay listing from Bowser Lover 123. Who's this? Super Mario Coinage Forever with a 4 as a. It's all Nintendo fucking names, and one listing ever, 0 ratings. Coming from Nintendo of America in Seattle. Yep, exactly. Or wherever the fuck they are.
That's all it is. They're just like, you know what? We can get our hands on these. $700.
Geniuses yet again.
You know.
The Super NES Classic does actually release on September 29th.
So we're going to switch on over into some comic book news. As you mentioned at the very beginning, we have a new DC crossover, one I never thought we would see. But I'm very excited for this.
Announced out of nowhere, too.
The latest company comic book crossover will come in the form of Harley and Ivy meet Betty and Veronica.
Have you seen the cover to this thing?
No.
It's done by Amanda Connor, and it's got Archie drinking a milkshake, and then 2 other straws with Harley and Ivy on each side, and they're all real close to him, and he's blushing. And then behind them all, behind the booth, are Betty and Veronica, and they have their arms crossed, looking angry down at Archie.
How does Archie get all these women? How does he get all these women? I have no idea.
That's kind of the ongoing joke, I guess, because he's a klutz. You know, he's a redhead. He's got freckles. He's not a.
So because he's a redhead and he has freckles,
are there handsome redhead males, Kelly?
No.
Okay, well then, that's all. I'm just going by that.
But you didn't say he's a redheaded male.
I did say male. No, male with freckles. Rewind the tape.
You said he's a redhead with freckles. Your wife is a redhead with freckles.
This 6-issue miniseries will be co-published by DC Comics and Archie Comics. Who cares, right? Okay, so we're getting this Harley Quinn book. Who is the fucking creative team behind this shit?
Paul Dini.
Paul Dini.
And Mark Andreyko.
Who was actually one of the forces to the Love is Love graphic novel. He, during the day of the Orlando shooting, he talked to Paul Dini and his wife Misty Lee and said, I really want to do something for the victims and the families of this awful tragedy. And they pushed him and they said, why don't you do a graphic novel where the donations and the sales go towards the victims? And he said, yes. And they all contacted all of these different artists and writers and said, hey, can we contract you to do some work for this project? And they all did it for free. And they're like, yeah, we'll do it for free. Here you go. We'll do a story. And so Mark Andreyko is a fucking awesome guy. And of course, huge thanks to Misty Lee and Paul Dini for inspiring him. And they're getting together once again for what is a project that will have Laura Braga doing the artwork, and she previously has worked on DC Comics Bombshells.
We have a synopsis here, quote, as socialism invades Riverdale with a scheme to bring free college tuition to Riverdalians by draining a local swamp. No, seriously, that's the plot. Nosy environmentalist, Poison Ivy, and the always marketable Harley Quinn kidnap Betty and Veronica to try and stop the plans. End quote.
This is so great.
Yes, it's perfect.
Are they going to fall in love with Archie too?
I'm sure they will. Why not? Everybody's fallen in love with Archie.
We have a quote here from Paul Dini who said, quote, I've always wanted the chance to play in Riverdale, and to help Harley and Ivy invade it is a dream come true. Mark's a great talent and a good friend. Writing the series with him has been like sitting on the lawn during summer vacation and reading a big pile of DC and Archie comics, end quote.
What a hard life, Paul Dini.
Well earned,
Yes.
Paul Dini. You gave us Harley Quinn along with Bruce Timm. You gave us Heart of Ice along with Bruce Timm. It's one of the co-creators to some of the greatest episodes from Batman the Animated Series, and to one of the most successful characters, recent characters for DC Comics or even comics in general, Paul Dini himself. Like I said before, get him up as soon as he's done with his projects with Marvel, which he's all done with Hulk and the Agents of Smash. You get him in the comics as soon as possible. Sure enough, DC has him on fucking lockdown from the sounds of it. He's doing the Harley Quinn backup stories and the current ongoing. That's twice a month. He's now doing miniseries almost by himself. Yeah, it's with Mark Andreyko, but he's also doing it on top of all of his other responsibilities.
As well, they should have him on lockdown. Pay that man whatever he wants for as long as he wants. Everything he writes is gold.
You know who's doing the covers, the variant covers, Kelly?
Who?
The main cover is going to be Amanda Conner.
Okay.
Variants by Adam Hughes.
Ugh, stop.
Adam Hughes. I just told my manager at the comic shop, and this was before they even announced this series. I was going through pricing of the older, I say older, they were from the early 2000s Wonder Woman series, and any covers by Adam Hughes, for no reason other than it's by Adam Hughes, were going for $30, $40, $150.
Wow.
The Zatanna, the final issue to Zatanna, which was also a Paul Dini one, it was also done by Adam Hughes. That one's going for $49. So I told him, from now on, Chris, anything by Adam Hughes, any cover by Adam Hughes, order 700 copies of that cover, and then 5 years later, ka-ching. We'll just sell them because it is Adam Hughes. So as soon as this news broke, I said, Chris, do all Adam Hughes covers.
Only Adam Hughes.
We love Amanda Conner. She's great. And actually order one Amanda Conner one as well, because I want to get both covers. But then the rest, just 700 of Adam Hughes. I mean, people want to know the investment of comics. Fucking Adam Hughes, man. That Betty and Veronica ongoing that's going on right now, out of print so quick, those covers in 5 years are going to be looking for. And we actually almost met him at MegaCon, but he had that huge ass line. His commissions, unfortunately, were just like headshots, profiles is what you call them. And they were going for a shit. He was charging a lot for what is just a profile. So I ended up passing, but all of his covers are fucking gorgeous and they're beautiful. The Catwoman covers that he did also are amazing. So yes, if you are even thinking of getting the Harley Quinn and Betty and Veronica series here, get both covers, at the very least, the Adam Hughes variant.
I remember when I discovered Adam Hughes on DeviantArt.
It's pretty amazing, right?
Yeah,
beautiful
great.
artwork.
He was great back then, too, but I was like, oh, yeah, cool, DeviantArt. Like, you never think that there's real artists on DeviantArt.
When can they pick up Harley and Ivy meet Betty and Veronica.
October 4th. Pick up your 700 copies of Adam Hughes' cover.
Absolutely. If you have a subscription at your local comic book shop, definitely add this to your sub. It will be appearing in your previews catalog very soon.
And anything Harley disappears off the shelf. We've talked about that before. So definitely pre-order if you want this book.
That's not all for Harley Quinn fans, Kelly. And the reason we cover so much Harley is because we are huge fans of Harleen Quinzel. There are a couple of books heading our way. A prequel and a sequel to the upcoming animated movie Batman and Harley Quinn, which is, of course, set in the Batman the Animated Series universe, heading straight to Blu-ray after its Fathom Events release, is heading our way in the form of 2 comic books.
As if it wasn't enough just to get Paul Dini writing another book, we get some more magic in our lives. The prequel will be a 5-issue miniseries that will be written by Ty Templeton, who did Gotham Adventures, with art from Rick Burchett from Batman Adventures.
Fucking amazing. Ty the Guy Templeton. He's recently done a couple of the variants for the Batman TMNT Adventures book, and now he is writing the sequel to what is the latest animated movie from DC Animated Studios.
I feel like we're getting Batman the Animated Series all over again. It's just our childhood, our younger years coming back. We see it all over the place with the movies they're making now, with the toys, and now we're getting it back in comic books.
The synopsis for the 5-issue miniseries says, Harley Quinn is a legend in her own mind, so when she realizes the Joker thinks of her as a sidekick, she takes her revenge. Harley's now faced with a hard decision to break out as her own supervillain, and she's willing to go for it.
Good for her.
A quote here from Ty Templeton, the writer.
Quote, I spent some of the best years of my career working with these icons and could not be happier to be returning to Gotham City and their adventures. And to top it off, I get to work with the incomparable Rick Burchett again. Pinch me, I'm dreaming. We're getting the band back together. End quote.
We actually first discovered Ty Templeton when we were reading from beginning to end all of the Batman Adventures, all of the Gotham Adventures comic books, one by one, every single time. And a ton of them were being written by Ty Templeton. He was doing a bunch of artwork and covers for it also. So we were following Ty the Guy. We followed him on Twitter for several years now, and hopefully I'm trying, Brokettes. This isn't a promise at all, but I am actually in the process of contacting him to try to get him to talk a little bit about this upcoming series right here on the podcast.
That would be amazing.
So the prequel miniseries, again, the 5 issues, is set to release on July 31st, but after the movie's release, there will be that sequel that we mentioned, and this is going to be a title named Batman and Harley Quinn, with several creators, including Ty Templeton, Jeff Parker, Craig Rousseau, Luciano Vecchio, Amanda Dabert, David Hahn, Dario Brizuela, Matthew Dow-Smith, and Sandy Jarrell.
Oof. Both series will be collected together in a physical trade paperback set to release summer 2018.
Here's the caveat, Kelly. It is going to be digital first. And it will be releasing before the movie, so anyone that is like us and they prefer to have the comic books in their hand will have to wait a little bit over half a year to get this in the physical trade paperback. But honestly, I am more than willing to wait for that complete collection of this series.
We've already waited over 10 years. What is another year?
Cannot wait. Good on Ty Templeton. Good on all of the creators involved in the project.
Good on DC.
Yes, good on Batman the Animated Series.
Good on people our age having expendable income to rebuy things from their youth.
to reaffirm what we ended up growing up with.
Yes. To relive a simpler time before bills and children.
So next bit of comic book news here. Although pre-orders have been large for DC's Dark Knight's Metal event, the company will be dropping the price of issues 2 through 6 from $4.99 to $3.99.
I think that this was the right move.
The same was actually done previously with Justice League versus Suicide Squad. If you remember that miniseries, completely sold out, did extremely well. And that was another one in which they did bring it down $1, but kept the page count the same. So that's one thing that they have done in the past already with these event miniseries, is they are going to be more expensive. We see that with All-Star Batman. We saw that with Justice League Suicide Squad. But it's good to see that the pricing or the pre-orders to these have been so large that they can bring down the prices $1, because of course they save on printing costs when it's a larger amount. And in this case, they are sort of, it's almost like rewarding the reader and saying, okay, because you believe in this event so much, we're going to bring it down, but keep the page count. It is a win-win for consumers and a win-win for DC, of course.
We do have a quote here from DC's SVP of Sales and Trade Marketing, John Cunningham, who says, quote, "Orders for Dark Days, The Forge, and the casting have exceeded our expectations, and we're on a similar track for Metal #1. That's allowing us to decrease the price of the remaining issues of Metal, which means consumers can buy the whole series for $5 less than before." End quote.
The Forge already sold out. That was gone. It's out of print. You got to wait for second printings. The casting, it's going to be the exact same story. And now we've got Metal coming up. And if it's anything like Justice League versus Suicide Squad, that will be another underordered event. Granted, we've got Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo on board. So people are going to be more aware of this event. But the fact that this isn't going to be a $5 an issue series is definitely good news.
Are there going to be variant covers to Metal?
Oh, yeah.
Because I can't have that little hand covered. He used their bodies to make the hand of the metal. I can't do it.
There are people that complain that, again, as I mentioned before with one of my coworkers, I said, you can just get the variant, man. Yeah. It's the same exact price.
I want the variant. Get me that one.
Not much room for whining. This is set to release issue #1 of Metal on August 16th.
Even more Batman things coming our way. This is the year of the Batman.
Every year is the year of the Batman.
Every year is the year of the Batman. But even more coming our way. Thanks to the home video packaging from the Batman and Harley Blu-ray, Batman Gotham by Gaslight is the next solicited animated movie.
The original book was written by Brian Augustin, who previously worked on Wonder Woman, and drawn by Mike Mignola, who of course is from Hellboy.
The Elseworld story is set in the late 1800s with Batman going up against Jack the Ripper.
While there is no release date yet for Gotham by Gaslight because people discovered it from the packaging of the Blu-ray, it is probably going to be a 2018 release.
I have never read this book, but you have.
Yes, it's an awesome story. It's like a what-if type of event, and what if Batman ended up going up against Jack the Ripper. It's very good, but I never would have guessed that this would have been the next or one of the animated adaptions for DC. I honestly thought we'd see Superman Red Sun before we saw Gotham by Gaslight. But either way, it is a series that will hopefully bump up sales for Gotham by Gaslight. It's not a series that readers come back to. It's not like The Killing Joke or even Red Sun that anyone sees on the list or they see recommendations from the comic book guy at the shop that people say, oh, I need that Gotham by Gaslight. Now it will be. People will want to get the series and get the full issue. But it will be interesting to see how they adapt Mike Mignola's artwork into the animated format.
Somebody over at DC is like, oh, that sold well, make a movie. That did well, make a movie. Make them all movies.
If they were going to do an animated adaptation to one of the Elseworld stories, I almost think that Batman and Darkest Night, in which he does become a Green Lantern, and if I remember correctly, the Joker is Sinestro. It's like a weird amalgam type of thing. I think that's what it was, or... Yeah, it's really kind of bizarre, but I figured that would have been one of the earlier adaptions before we saw Gotham by Gaslight. Now, granted, Gotham by Gaslight is a way better story.
Is Gotham by Gaslight steampunky?
No, it is not. It's more Victorian era. So
steampunky. They could throw some steampunk in there.
Not if they want to honor the old material, which those Gotham by Gaslight fans will make sure that this is done as the previous ones have been.
At the end of the day, are we going to watch this? Yes.
Yes.
Are we going to support anything that they do? Yes.
For the most part, yeah.
So, whatever. They're going to make money.
Before we go into our Patreon shoutouts, we do have our hashtag games for the week.
Our hashtag this week is hashtag autocorrected films.
My entry was Disney's The Mighty Fucks.
Okay, only I think fucks gets autocorrected into ducks.
Not on my phone.
Oh, not on your phone. Okay, I apologize. Speaking of autocorrect, so we bought my grandma an iPhone for Christmas so she could stay connected to us.
Okay.
And she texts my mom every day about, what's going on, because she lives about an hour and a half away from us. So she texts, she fed the cats, and then the ducks came over. Only she always types ducks as dicks, and she never checks it. So I come over, and my mom's just laughing, and she goes, "Your grandmother chased the dicks away again today." And it's my favorite thing. That's what it
Disney's The Mighty Dicks.
There you go.
An entry here from Twitter user at Curbside1986 said, "Smurf of a Nation," autocorrected from Birth of a Nation. Do you have anything that can top the Mighty Dicks?
Nothing can. I just came up with the Mighty Dicks, so there you go.
Your grandma did.
My grandma came up with the Mighty Dicks.
If you do see the hashtag games that we do post up on Twitter at Reasons I'm Broke or Facebook.com/The Reasons I'm Broke, feel free to participate and we may include it right here on the podcast.
Mighty Dicks. Can that be the title of the show? Don't name the show that.
And with that, we can jump into our Patreon shoutouts for the week.
This week, our shoutouts go to John, whose Twitter handle is at John72Tex, and Brian, who is at BrianShelp1.
John recently sold a big stack of Silver Age comic books at his local comic book shop. So congratulations on moving some awesome comics. And now someone's collection has gotten even bigger. And of course, the comic shop has benefited and can now try to bring in more comic book Silver Age books and sell it to the next person. So everybody wins. Congratulations again. Not the easiest thing to sell Silver Age comics, especially a stack of them, because typically those are harder to find and they are harder in price, especially if they're mid to high grade.
And Brian recently hopped on Mother Russia from Alterna Comics and may soon own the first Deathstroke.
First Deathstroke appearance, that's right, the New Teen Titans #2. Ooh. Congrats to Brian, and a huge thanks to both Brian and John for supporting us on patreon.com/The Reasons I'm Broke, and to the rest of our backers as well. For as little as $1 a month, that equals out to 25 cents an episode, you too can get your shout out.
But of course, our podcast will always be free. The best thing that we tell you guys every single week you can do for us is leave us a review on iTunes, tell your friends about us, reach out to us on Twitter. This podcast is for you, all of you. So any reviews and feedback or just interaction that we get fuels us to continue.
A huge thanks to DecalAvenue.com for the help at the $5 decal reward tier.
As we mentioned in the beginning of the show, we don't have a comic book highlight of the week. Typically, it would be right here in this space, talking about how Batman loves Catwoman or how great Saga is. But no jumping on points for us this week. But we do now have your spoiler-filled review of Spider-Man Homecoming.
If you haven't seen the movie and you don't want it spoiled, thank you so much for tuning in to episode number 252 of the Reasons I'm Broke podcast. We definitely appreciate it, and we'll see you next week. Otherwise, onward with Spider-Man Homecoming.
What are you hiding, Peter? I'm just kidding, I don't care. Bye.
Before we get into our review, we are going to give you guys a little bit of statistics that we have for the movie. We're going to start off by talking about the director, the actors, etc. So this movie is directed by John Watts, who also did Cop Car. I didn't even know that was a movie.
It stars Tom Holland from Captain America Civil War, Michael Keaton from the 1989 Batman, and of course the more recent Birdman, and Robert Downey Jr. from Iron Man and Chaplin.
Opening weekend, this movie did $116.5 million domestically and $140.5 million internationally for a grand total of $257 million.
That's a lot of money for Sony.
That's a lot of money.
Per that Sony and Disney deal, Sony's getting all of these returns. It is still set to open later this month in France, Germany, and Spain.
So our review is going to be formatted into 3 sections. We're going to talk about the story, the acting and directing, and the special effects. We'll talk about all these things, and then at the very end, we will give it a rating of 1 through 5.
And theming it with the movie out of 5 penis Parkers.
Okay. 1 through 5 penis Parkers.
So the story itself takes place right after Captain America Civil War, in which he has apparently been filming the whole fight up to that point, and they're just like, yeah, I guess you never saw it, of course, and he's been doing it behind the scenes, and you just kind of get some answers as to when he first tried on the Spider-Man suit, when he was first approached by Tony Stark on joining the initiative of Civil War. And I understand why they did it, because when they did that Sony Disney deal, from what I understand, Civil War was already into production, and then they were able to write him in to that big fight of all the superheroes, the one you saw at the airport. But this does give us the compelling villain of the Vulture, which you haven't gotten from the Marvel Disney films. And now that they have teamed up with Sony, it's interesting that now there's like a really interesting and sympathetic villain to the Marvel movies. And it does begin after, even further back from Civil War, where the Avengers first saved New York. And of course there was all that damage, just like you saw in Wachovia. And in this case, the Vulture is running a salvage company that is there to clean up New York, and instead the Department of Damage Control is now taking over all of the facilities, all of the cleanup, because of the alien technology. So instead of him, who put all his money and his resources into a big bet of, this is going to be our thing, guys. Like, I hired all these men, I bought all these trucks, we're going to clean up New York, we got contracted by the city. And then with this outside company, which I'm pretty sure was Tony Stark, right? It was linked with Tony in some way.
Tony had hired them or something.
His company is booted away, so these local jobs are now fucked, and instead it's this government type of company that wants this technology. So they said, yeah, guys, fuck off. They didn't even buy out their contract. They said, fuck off.
Yeah. We have a contract with the city. Well, that doesn't fucking matter, so too bad.
That's when Michael Keaton has to be like, well, we have to go to drastic measures, because clearly the big guys don't give a shit about local guys like us. And I'm like, God damn, this is super relatable. This is super amazing. Have they been hearing some of the plights that local businesses have had? What is going on here?
They've heard us. And Sony's saying that to Disney.
Thank you, Sony. Good job, Sony. I'm going to do that a lot, by the way. I'm going to give so much credit to Sony just
good job, Sony.
to rattle some cages with the Disney fanboys. So it starts off with the younger Peter. I'll let you take it from here.
So we do skip forward 8 years into the future. This is, again, Peter Parker right after all the events of Civil War, and he's just ready to get out there and fight again to be an Avenger. So all Tony tells him at the end is, we'll contact you. We'll contact you if we need you. And so Peter's just running around his city, cleaning up things, giving little old ladies direction, saving, purse thieves and getting churros, and reporting back to Tony Stark, hey, this is all the stuff that I'm doing, but I want to do more. Please tell me when I can. And of course, Tony Stark is like, you're not ready. Just be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Because we had to throw that in there somewhere.
And in the meantime, the Vulture is now, we are introduced to his business, of which is, it is modifying this alien technology. He made himself the Vulture suit out of this. And they do go underground, and they do steal this alien tech from what is that damage control company, which, again, he is fucking that company. He is fucking Tony Stark by doing this. And on the side, he is reformatting these into technology, into weapons, and selling it what seems to be on the black market.
Let me tell you, for salvage company guys, these guys are really smart to be able to make this technology.
We know the Vulture's smart. They established that pretty quickly, that he's a smart business guy. But it sounds like he brought on that bigger dude who was like, yeah, I'll build all this shit for you, and you guys sell it. You guys go out there and do essentially the grunt work. But the Vulture, who is the head of that grunt work, is still in charge of all of this shit. Well,
that big dude who was designing it all was on his team.
Oh, from the beginning? So he just happens to be a genius that they hired?
All those guys were on that team. And because the guy has said, I wish we had some of that because we could make some cool stuff. And then he's like, oh, look, magically it's in the back of my truck now.
Yeah, we won't report this. There's some issues with it. There's some issues with the story, of course. This is when Spider-Man and the Vulture end up conflicting because he is trying to protect his own city, and he notices the giant explosion off in the distance, and it is his crew essentially testing out the weaponry for a potential client. And this gets Spider-Man's attention, and he tries to stop them from completing the transaction, and that's when Peter Parker says, this is a whole operation, and I'm going to stop them from stealing these weapons from, even if it's from a big company, I don't care, it's still stealing, so I'm going to stop them. And then on the Vulture side, he says, no, fuck those guys, they don't care about us, we have to make ends meet however we can.
And of course there's conflict where Peter wants to stop them, but Iron Man says, no, you're not ready, and Peter Parker says, yes, I'm ready, somebody needs to do something, and Iron Man says, nope, it's okay, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it.
In the middle of all this, we are introduced to the love story that is Peter Parker and Liz, and how he is conflicting with himself, and of course with Genki. I'm going to call him fucking Genki.
He's
I know it's
Genki.
Ned Leeds in the fucking credits.
No,
It's goddamn
it's
Genki.
Genki.
Pay fucking Brian Michael Bendis the money he deserves.
We have to
pay Sarah Pichelli.
We have to save Genki for when we get Miles Morales.
Oh, so it's going to be the same fucking actor? I hope it's the same goddamn actor, because that looks like goddamn Genki.
Well, because it is
Does he have a twin brother?
Yes.
Named Genki? And by the way, there is that in-written story thing where the first client that he does end up coming into conflict with ends up being the Prowler, which in the Ultimate Universe is Miles Morales' uncle. And in this, he does say, I do have a nephew here in the city. Wink, wink. It's me, the guy that inspires Miles Morales, but I'm too old to play Miles Morales because they won't just write an older Miles Morales. So instead, I'm just going to say I'm his uncle. So this is some way in which I can sort of get redemption for not being Miles Morales. I'm like, God damn. They fucking did it.
That was pretty much word for word what was said in the movie. So great.
I would have been fine with it. I'm like, no, all of this is true, everyone.
You stood up in the theater. It's accurate.
Do you know who Miles is? No, do you know who Miles is? No, you don't know. Okay,
give me that one guy. Yeah.
Can you explain it more better? Yeah, let's explain it. I have a nephew here who lives simply miles away from here. There we go. See, he said it. It's pretty much confirmed.
Morals are pretty good.
And his last name is Morales.
You could say I'm moralist because he's a thief.
Oh,
He has no morals.
Now I get it. So we get our little nod at Miles Morales. Yeah. So assholes like me are like, all right, we're going to get him. Someday we'll see it.
In the meantime, yes, you do have the little love story that we see where he thinks this girl is cute. We have Genki who discovers that he's Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. I made a cameo in the movie too.
Holy fuck, you did. Yes, you did. We are happy to announce to everyone.
I was a little Lego figure.
That's right. We worked out a deal with Marvel and Disney and Sony to actually get a reference that only the Brokettes would understand. So, in several parts of the movie, because we said, you're not just going to do this once, you're going to put Kelli several times in this movie, and that camera is going to fucking focus on that shit. And you see a little Emperor Palpatine Lego figurine, and it is shown to you in the camera, and it is on top of the Death Star, and Genki even holds it up and says, and you will move over to the dark side. And that is a reference to all the Brokettes, so that all the Brokettes audiences can see it as they're sitting in theaters, and they're like, holy shit, that's Kelli. There she is. Like, there's more than just it's no longer the Stan Lee cameos anymore. It is now the Kelli cameos that are going to start showing up in your Sony Disney movies.
Yes, all of that is accurate.
And we paid $0.
$0. They were coming to us throwing money, and I said, no, I don't need any praise.
They wanted you to do an actual cameo.
They did.
But we know our Brokettes are smarter than that. Mm-hmm. It would have been too obvious to have you popping out of a window like fucking Stan Lee.
And then for me to get on a plane with this Leo in my tummy and
not happening.
Take time off work. No.
Yeah, no, they just filmed this in the last 5 months.
Yes, of course. That's when it was filmed.
So we said, no, we want something that Brokettes will decipher. And they will, 100%. Every single one of them will. So now, even if you might have missed it, I know if you hadn't missed it, you would have deciphered it and known immediately. But in case you missed it, watch it again. Keep an eye for the little Palpatine Lego figurine. It pops up several times. Hello, everyone. That is Kelli. That's your little nod. You're welcome.
So we also have Spider-Man going around saving people. Moving on from my perfect cameo.
Yeah, is that your first cameo?
I'm sure I've been
in the
other-
MCU.
Yes, in
Okay.
the MCU. I mean, I was in all those like Star Wars movies.
You will make a cameo as Mara in Justice League later this year.
Yes, I will be there also. Anything redheaded, that was probably me.
There you go. Except Mary Jane.
Except Mary Jane. He's saving this girl from an elevator. That happens. You see his life falling apart because he's not doing his school things that he's supposed to be doing, and he's leaving detention, and he's going against Tony Stark, who doesn't want him to do this because he could get killed, and then it would be on Tony, and Tony would feel bad.
And he takes away the suit.
Yep. After the scene that we've seen in the trailer a million times, where he's holding together the boat all Jesus-like, and he's like,
Yeah, Christ. It hasn't been this obvious since Batman v Superman with Superman.
Exactly.
So instead, yeah, his suit is taken away, and life kind of falls together for him. It's the opposite of what you kind of would expect. And instead, he's doing well in school again. He is getting the attention of his love interest, which is Liz, to the point where he asks her out to the Homecoming dance. It's still a terrible title, Spider-Man Homecoming. And she says yes. And everything is going great. He gets ready.
Because a senior would really like a sophomore. But I'm sorry, continue.
Well, he's a genius, though. And he was on the team, and he ditched her twice already. But yeah, you know what? She likes him. It's fine. For the story, it has to continue. And Aunt May, by the way, Marissa Tomei, amazing job. Well done. Love your performance in The Wrestler. Love your performance in Civil War. And now in Spider-Man Homecoming. Great job. And as Aunt May, she teaches him how to dance. She helps him get ready. She is the parental figure to Peter Parker, and we see that. And it is awesome. And they allude to the fact that she recently lost Uncle Ben because he says what she just went through. So it is a younger Peter Parker. Of course, it's a newer thing. So they didn't actually play it on screen. I think everyone's already seen, Uncle Ben several times.
Uncle Ben died?
Everyone knows the story, and all they had to do...
Yeah, he was at a wrestling thing, and then when the guy was stealing money, and he was angry at the wrestling guy, so he's like, whatever, and then he shot Uncle Ben.
And then, of course, you had Bonesaw is ready.
What? I don't even know what that is. I've apparently blocked it from my memory.
We didn't see no Bonesaw. I wanted to see some Bonesaw.
Okay.
Even though I know they can't do it, but Bonesaw!
He's ready. So he picks up Liz for Homecoming. And what did I say right before this door opened?
You fucking called that
Oh
shit
my God.
again. God
Why am
damn
I
it.
so great?
Her father's the goddamn Vulture. And you're like, Michael Keaton's gonna be on the other side of that fucking door. And boom! And they don't even allude oh dun 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 dun, and then he opens it. No. You have the happy music. Peter Parker's great, everything's awesome. Opens the fucking door and it's goddamn Michael Keaton. Birdman himself, Batman. I'm like, holy shit, Kelli, you just told me this was gonna happen.
These things just come to me. I just know them. Well, because I was thinking logically, I'm like, okay, so how are they gonna get him back into the movie? How is he going to get back to being Spider-Man? And this just makes sense.
That is smart writing, though.
It's
Credit to the writers for this portion.
It's great writing. Why
awesome.
am I not a writer if I can think these things up?
Well, once our Patreon gets high enough, we can finance an indie movie.
Okay.
Starring Palpa Kelly.
Yes.
And the rest we'll figure it out. We'll figure that out later.
We'll figure it out. One thing at a time. So yes, opens up the door. Michael Keaton. Of course, Spider-Man has to be totally obvious about it.
God damn it.
So
he's the worst.
Just staring at him. Oh, you look pale, son. Are you okay? Yeah.
He just looks like Michael Keaton's about to lunge at him at any goddamn minute.
And it's like if you had walked in and been real cool, you would have been fine. You could have been like, hey, sir, so what's your name? And then got in the car and text Tony Stark and be like, hey, I'm in the car with the Vulture right now. It's Liz's dad. This is where we're headed. Meet me there. It's
time for us to get in this car and take you to Homecoming. Yeah, I mean, you could even say we could just fly right out of here. God damn it, Peter.
We learned in class the other day about various birds like vultures. Jesus, Peter Parker.
I would have loved that more. That somehow would have been less goddamn obvious than what he was doing. We was about to throw a fucking punch at Michael Keaton.
And he was so obvious that Michael Keaton figured out who he was. Immediately. He gets in the car and he's like, huh.
You know Spider-Man, don't you? No, I don't. I mean, yeah, he's all right. He's cool. Yeah, you have to leave when we were at the fucking Washington Monument, and Michael Keaton's like, I'm not fucking stupid. You're fucking Spider-Man.
But he could have played it off so chill. He could have been like, I met him once. He's kind of an asshole.
Yeah, he could have pulled the Bruce Wayne of like, yeah, Batman's a fucking asshole. He's a piece of shit. Worst thing in Gotham ever.
Yeah.
And no, he was like, I like Spider-Man too.
Pretty much. Totally obvious. So then Liz gets out of the car and Michael Keaton's like, I need to have a father talk with Peter Parker. Pulls out his gun right there.
Hell yeah, man.
Nobody's going to see it in the fucking school parking lot.
To be fair, it was dark against the dark seats.
Whatever.
You only saw it because it made that noise that it always does in movies when someone pulls out a gun.
Whatever. Pulls out his gun. He's like, listen, you're going to go in there and show my daughter a good time, but not too good of a time. And you're just going to leave me the fuck alone.
Honestly, if I were Peter Parker Spider-Man, I'd be like, you know what? I could be friends with this guy. Like, I could have been friends with fucking Michael Keaton. I'm like, I know you're stealing that shit. And as he explained later, there's from people that really don't care about people like him and Peter. Like, all right, man, if you're not hurting anyone, I won't come after. I would have worked out a fucking deal with Michael Keaton. And honestly, I don't feel like he wanted to hurt anyone. Because when he first obliterated the Shocker, he was like, oh shit, I thought that was a gravity gun.
So Peter goes into Homecoming, and you're like, oh, this is going to be great. Now he's going to dance with the girl and be all happy. And he's like, I have to go. You don't deserve me. I mean, you don't deserve this. And then he walks away.
He runs out and he puts on his shitty Spider-Man outfit because
Spider-Man
Tony's is gone.
sweats.
And miraculously, the Shocker is right at the spot that he would have, I guess, escaped out of. Yep. And he says, he gave you a choice, and this is a choice you made. I'm like, hold on, how did you... No, this is stupid. This is stupid. And then Genki saves the day with his own web shooter that he picks up from Parker. And then from there, they trap the Shocker, and he runs off and tries to stop the Vulture from stealing the cargo, the full Tony Stark Avengers cargo that is very obviously flying out of Avengers Tower, open helicarrier, going over the city, and then going into camouflage, where people are already like, that thing just camouflaged.
Yeah.
And then that's where he ends up pretty much stealing he wants to steal all of the Tony Stark cores, which, by the way, this is another time in which Tony Stark has created villains. This is like the 16th time.
This is all Tony Stark does, is create villains. So he's got to jump in there and stop the Vulture. Oh, first Vulture tries to kill him, and that's when we have the moment of, if you don't have the suit, then you're nothing. Or if you're nothing without the suit, then you're really nothing.
You don't deserve the suit, yeah.
And then he's like, oh, I'm trapped under these concrete, but look, I broke free.
Which was pretty cool, because that is a reference to an old, very classic Silver Age issue, and it's on the cover itself, in which he is lifting up this concrete. It's like water all on top of him, and they almost recreated it exactly like what you saw, and you've seen it in the animated series too. So I thought that was a really cool nod to an older Spider-Man story.
I was very confused why he had water on him, but then I realized it was an air conditioning unit, so it made sense.
There you go. Done.
They explained it for me.
So yeah, he ends up tracking down the Vulture. The whole plane ends up coming down with everything, and this is the Vulture's last thing, because if they don't do this, there is no business, and this is essentially it. So this is where Peter is conflicted, not only in this is the girl I like's dad, but I'm also changing her life by stopping him.
Well, he's also saving a bunch of people by stopping him, because he's going to stop making all these stupid guns. All the weapons.
Yeah, that's true too. So, I mean, he could have made refrigerators. He could have made microwaves.
Yeah, all those things.
Self-sustaining, anything that is not a weapon.
So that it could get out there more, and then they could find out that he was stealing all these things. Yes, exactly. So they have the epic battle, which you always expect from these movies, where he stops him, and Vulture's flying away. He almost stops him. Vulture's flying away, and he's going to explode. And Peter's like, no, you're going to explode. And then he explodes. But he's okay. He's okay.
Yeah, he's fine.
He's fine. So then Peter goes in there and saves him.
He walks through fire, by the way.
Fire.
And remember, it doesn't hurt you unless you actually catch on fire. That's movie logic.
Yes. Walks through the fire, pulls him out, saves his life, essentially. And then webs him all up with all the stuff that he pulled out of the plane. He took the time to...
And stack it all up neatly.
And then web it all together. Yeah, and then write out a note that says, here's this Vulture guy, which is the only time he's ever called the Vulture in the whole movie.
Which I'm okay with.
That's right.
I'm fine with it.
We knew who he was.
At the very end, Liz's life is, of course, affected by her father's arrest. There's no longer that income coming in. She has to move to, what did they say, Georgia? Utah. And
Oregon.
Okay, Oregon. And that's when he's like, God damn it, that's a bummer. She's gone. And then that's when he meets up again with this debate team or whatever it is. And that's when the one character who's been like, yeah, whatever. It's played by, what's her name? Lizandia or whatever.
It's a Ziandra or something. Something. That's not her name.
I have
either.
no friends, but now that you guys are my friends, all my friends call me MJ. So that rumor earlier that I did not know, this is the worst thing since when Talia said she wasn't Talia. It's Mary Jane right there.
It's like when Robin said he wasn't Robin.
It's the Dark Knight Rises all over again.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this is Mary Jane. This is going to be our universe's Mary Jane. I don't give a shit that she's not a redhead. Who cares?
Who cares?
And you got your Spider-Man, you got the Vulture, you got what is overall an entertaining story. There are some portions in which it does stall a little bit. There's a little bit too much arguing between Genki and Peter Parker, but I mean, aside from that, the kind of ups and downs that we are taking to is done overall in a smooth way. It could have been very messy, it could have been very convoluted, and there are a lot of pieces at play here, but they do wrap up neat enough to where I'm like, all right, this was fine.
So that was the story. Let's talk about the directing and the acting.
Much like any Avengers movie or Captain America Civil War, there's nothing particularly special about the way it was shot.
Mm-hmm.
It's very standard. It's easy to keep track of. It's done for, a popcorn audience. They didn't try to get too fancy with it. And, I would love to see more out of these superhero movies. And I'm only speaking of the Marvel side because there are some neat things that were done in Batman v Superman and, of course, the Dark Knight trilogy. But in this case, it's aimed at a younger audience, I would say. So you don't want to get too crazy with it. And aside from that, the acting, Tom Holland, I think, is a great Peter Parker. He's better than, I think, Andrew Garfield.
I like Andrew Garfield more.
I don't think he's I know you don't like Tobey Maguire. Tobey Maguire played the people don't like me role better than Tom Holland or better than Andrew Garfield.
Yes, because all the times that who is it? Flash? What's his name?
Barry Allen?
No, the
Flash Thompson?
Yeah.
This is the lamest goddamn Flash Thompson in all of existence, by the way.
Anyway.
I'm like, that guy's the fucking bully? Anyone could fucking beat that piece of shit up.
So the whole time Flash Thompson is making fun of him, he's just like, meh, meh, whatever. He's just making, I'm not cool. You're right.
I'm like, you and Genki are pretty fucking cool. And not even because of all the stuff we know. Like, in front of everyone else, you guys aren't spazzes, really. Like, you guys are fine.
Right.
You guys are not modern fucking dorks or nerds or whatever. Everything is cool. And again, Tobey Maguire, his Spider-Man was definitely a fucking, like, yeah, you can see his 30-year-old ass getting picked on by everyone. Nobody
liked him. Of course not. I pick on him too. I'm like, yeah, Spider-Man.
Like, that's the only thing I could have seen with Tom Holland. I don't know. They could have done more as far as like making him less likable, and we didn't really see that. Like, Flash Thompson and calling him Penis Parker is not enough to be like, oh yeah, people really don't like him. No, people talk to him plenty throughout the movie. Him and Genki.
Because it's Genki.
It is fucking Genki, and he did Genki great. That actor, whoever that is.
Wonderful Genki.
Great Aunt May for Marissa Tomei. But the best actor out of all this,
of course,
not Robert Downey Jr.
No.
Mr. Michael Keaton, just coming off of Birdman.
He was great.
Batman, amazing Vulture. Him threatening Peter Parker was great. Him playing just like the dad of like, I love you, sweetie. Hey, Dumpling. Amazing. And then being the fucking sympathetic bad guy on top of that, which is what we adore and love and needed out of the Disney movies. And thank you, Sony. And it doesn't count, by the way, Disney, because Sony also did this.
After the first scene, when we have that moment where he's like, we need to do something different because he just lost his job, essentially.
Yes.
I turned to you and I was like, I feel bad for him.
Yes.
He's not a villain. And I just knew from that moment that like his performance would be the best part of that movie. And it was.
It's so cool. Like when he needed to be scary, he was scary. And that design of the Vulture, do you know what the original Vulture looks like?
He's like a Vulture man, right?
Pretty much. Like, he's almost like Birdman. And it's without the mask, and he's really super old. Instead, it's like that tech with the alien stuff. And he's got like the kind of drone type of windmills. Like clearly, I don't know anything about drones. I don't know what you fucking call those things.
The propellers.
Mini helicopter things.
Propellers.
I don't even think they're propellers. I don't know. There's probably a technical name.
I'm sure there is.
Because it's from Jones. But all that whole design, and he's even got the little fluffy jacket, which is like, that's almost like the fur, the feathers around him.
Yeah, he's wearing an aviator jacket.
It's
what he's
super
wearing,
cool.
With the fur around it. Yeah.
That is cool. I was like, he looks awesome on screen. That's better than the Tony Stark. That's better than Iron Man's costume. That's better than Spidey's costume. That is better than even that super amazing, cool Spider-Man redone costume at the very end when Tony Stark says, you are a part of the Avengers, and Gwyneth Paltrow comes on screen and says, I'm back in these movies again because I decided and agreed to take one less zero on that fucking paycheck. I definitely want to be a part of this. So hello, everyone, again. I'm sorry I asked for too much money. Yes, she is back. But it looks better than that Spider-Man costume that was fucking phenomenal. It is almost a hybrid of the current Spider-Man Homecoming suit and the Civil War outfit that we saw in the comic books. In the first 7 issues of the original Civil War, because there's, of course, a sequel, and then now there's that movie, it is almost that suit with the Spider-Man outfit. It's got the beautiful red and blue metallic. It's got a new design on it. And you know when you saw that, he's not going to fucking wear that right now. He's obviously going to turn it down, and it's all built on this because he wants a simpler... He recognized that he does also have room to grow, but that the city also needs to be watching him. And the Vulture teaches him that someone needs to watch out for the little guy. So in the end, it was also organically written in where the Vulture ended up making Peter grow as a superhero and as a person. So it is like, I'm like, fuck yeah, thumbs up on that end. It is all because of Michael Keaton and the Vulture and the writing of the villain.
So yes, his costume was good.
Aside from that, we can move on to the special effects. I wouldn't say anything too special about him, aside, I guess, from sometimes the Vulture. It's Spider-Man still looks way too video gamey and cartoony. I don't know if it has to do with the bright colors on it, but even Tony Stark in the Iron Man suit, I'm like, this looks way too fucking CGI.
It looked way worse than the other times he was in the Iron Man
Agreed,
suit.
yes. And I don't know, man. You've got the fucking budget. Put a guy in a fucking costume. And you do know when he does because the light reflects. There's one scene in which there's a close-up of someone in a suit, in a Spider-Man suit. And you see the light reflecting off of the actual material and the texture on the actual outfit. And that's when you see, okay, there's actual lighting on this scene and there is someone wearing this outfit.
Right.
And it looks natural and it looks real. But then any other time, it's like, I know you got to do CGI for a lot of the special effects shots.
And his swinging and...
But when you have him holding on to each ship, like, have green screen that shit. Put someone, hang him up, like, whatever. And when you saw it in the original Spider-Man, Sam Raimi movies, like, he would swing and then he would land on a building and it would be someone in an outfit like Mary Jane. Like, it'd be someone there. So do more of that shit because, unfortunately, the special effects are still not quite there to cut just doing strictly animated shit for the superheroes.
And we say that every single movie that we would like to see more of that, and it continues to not happen.
I still don't know if it's just obvious to us or if everyone else is like, who cares? Like, it doesn't matter. I think
a lot of people just don't care.
Yeah,
at this
it could
point.
be
They're
that.
just like, oh wow, that looks cool, and I'm just like, I see what you're trying to do, but come on, do something different. Just
Put someone in a goddamn suit.
Yes.
Do it. You saw it in Justice League. Right now in the trailer. We just saw it. Yeah, they're green screen completely. But there's Jason Momoa in the Aquaman suit. There's Batman, Ben Affleck right there. It's on some fucking completely CGI, even if they're just standing there. Like, don't do that shit. Put someone in a fucking suit.
I mean, except for Cyborg.
They're getting paid.
There's Cyborg.
But even that, they did, like, and that's the thing, Cyborg looks terrible. And it's still someone there, though. So it's crazy. So I don't know. The special effects are still lacking, unfortunately, on my end. But aside from that, the story, I think, was the strongest portion of it, followed by the acting from Michael Keaton. And I don't think any acting was particularly terrible. I think everything was pretty solid for the most part.
Yeah, what you expected.
And then special effects were probably the worst bit of it. But aside from that, we can go ahead and give our final thoughts on Homecoming, not only as a Spider-Man film, but as a first collaboration between Disney and Sony.
This one's hard for me, because I don't quite know what to give this movie. I'm going to go for 2.75 penis Parkers.
Out of 5.
Out of 5. 2.75. So
and why is that?
Little over half. I am not a huge Spider-Man fan. If I am, it's more for Miles Morales. There were some nods in there to other things, and there were things I enjoyed, like Michael Keaton. I enjoyed him a lot. But overall, I feel like the movie was almost too easy for me to follow. I didn't really connect to any of the characters there. There wasn't that moment that brought me to tears. And just coming off of Wonder Woman, which is the last movie I saw. and I know that I shouldn't compare it to that, but that had such a compelling story. And this one, halfway through, I'm like, all right, I feel like we're halfway through this movie now. I had those moments rather than just being so immersed into the story that nothing else outside mattered.
Right. Yeah, I never once got shivers throughout this thing. Like, there was never that wow moment for me as I'm watching this, like, this is a Spider-Man movie.
Except when I went, Michael Keaton's going to be behind that door. But then it was a wow because of your wife.
Like, aside from that, I wouldn't put it any higher than the first two Sam Raimi movies. I will watch Spider-Man 1 or 2 over Spider-Man Homecoming any day of the week. And I guess I would give it a super similar score to what you gave it. You said 2.75 penis Parkers. I'm going to go with 3 penis Parkers because I will rewatch this for Michael Keaton's performance alone. In the overall structure of the movies, I think it does do a pretty decent job in standing on its own. They summarize what happened in Civil War pretty well, and this is a relatively new character as far as this continuity of the MCU. So it did its job, in which you can just watch Homecoming and not have too much of an issue. But aside from that, everything is pretty standard. The storytelling is the strongest part of it, but again, even that is like, okay, this is better than the Avengers. This is higher than your
better than the Avengers.
Higher than your average Marvel movie.
It is better than Doctor Strange.
Oh my God, yes, it is way better than Doctor Strange. I've never seen my quick summary on Doctor Strange. I've never seen a movie with such impressive visuals be so boring.
Yes.
In the middle of those visuals, like, God, do we care? It's
who cares?
Who cares? Aside from that, Homecoming. I'm gonna, as I mentioned, summary 3 penis Parkers out of 5 against your 2.75 penis Parkers. Is this the closest we've ever gotten to almost an exact score?
I think so.
And to anyone that hasn't heard our scores before, I rated it overall as a movie, with 5 being The Fountain and City Lights and 1 and 0 being The Avengers or The Room. And in your case, you rated it as overall enjoyment, correct? So that is our overall ratings and our review for Spider-Man Homecoming. Let us know what you thought of Spider-Man Homecoming on Facebook.com/TheReasonsI'mBroke, on Twitter @ReasonsI'mBroke. But for a link on everywhere you can find us, head on over to TheReasonsI'mBroke.com.
And don't forget the podcast awards. If you guys enjoyed this show at all, please nominate us. It takes 5 minutes of your time. You can just scroll down to the show description and you'll have a link right there.
Aside from that, thank you so much for tuning in. Whether you are a newer Brokehead or a longtime listener, I'm Daniel.
And I'm Emperor Papa Kelli.
We'll see you next week.